This is Gemara Menachos Daf Pei Aleph. And today's share has been sponsored as an incredible schos Aliyas Neshama for a very close friend of the Daf. We've been learning together for years, connected with the entire Mishpacha Baruch Hashem. As the schos Aliyas Neshama for Eliazer Moshe ben Sheiма, B'siyata Deshmaya, the incredible Kayach HaTeira should elevate his Neshama, especially on these Dafim of the Yontif of Pesach, higher and higher, Bigan Eden Shel Maila. An exciting daf, the daf for the first day of Pesach, B'siyata Deshmaya. As you see, these dafim are getting up well in advance for those who like to prepare and have the daf under control going into Yontif as well. Says the Gemara, we're at the parentheses, about 15 lines at the bottom of Peyam and Beis, in which we're going to have numerous ways of learning, different Tanoim, different stipulations that would potentially allow, when we have the surviving animal, that will still be allowed to be brought as a carbon. So we begin, Amru Lemeidim Lifnei Rebbe. Says the Gemara, those who before Rebbe said to Rebbe. One second, where to go? Where's our... There it is. Amru Lefneidim Lifnei Rebbe. V'leisi lechem v'leima. Let the owner, again, we have these two animals. One is the surviving animal. Let the owner bring that animal and say the following. If the surviving animal is a taida, then he halachman, and this is the lechem of the taida. Eloi lepig lechulin, and if it's not the taida, but rather was the replacement was the tamura, then these bread should be chulin, meaning let it never become kadosh in the first place. Amr lahu, Rebbe responds, wait, you run into a problem over here, so how can you bring these breads? Can't bring chulna azara. Says the Gemara, okay, so let him bring another animal and the bread. And say as follows. If the animal is the tamura, then what? That means the surviving animal is the tamura, so we need a taida. So then you say, okay, Gavaldik, this new animal is a taida, and the bread is the bread. And taida, let's say the surviving animal is indeed the taida, halachma, then let him say that the bread is the lechem of that surviving animal, and I am bringing another carbon as a shlamim. So by creating a stipulation, it will allow both the bread and the animal to be brought. Amar Lahu, Rebbe responds, the reason why we don't do this is because we're reducing the amount of time to be eaten, that a taida has 1 day and 1 night, a shlam has 2 days and a night, and therefore such a tanai will leave him being required to eat it within a day and a night, and that's going to create a matzav of nicer, you're not going to finish it, and that's why we don't do such. Amar Levi l'Rebbe, another suggestion. V'leisi behema v'lechem, let him Nachmal bring a behema and bread, v'leima and say, Lema, and let him say, Achdekaima Tmuri, if this one's a Tmura, Hataida, I'm bringing a Taida Valachma. Vihaidekaima Taida, Yalachma, Vatave Meiser the Taida. Then I'm bringing here the Lachem, and this other animal should be a Meiser the Taida, residual Taida, which such a Taida does not require Lechem, and therefore the bread could be either the first one or it's going to be nothing. Amar Le, Rebbe responds, Kimadumani, Shelai Moyach. Bikot Kada, a fascinating way that they would speak to each other. It appears you don't got a brain in that skull. Why? B'chima Frishin, as we turn over to Ayin Aleph Amid Aleph, B'chima Frishin says the Gemara, Techila l'Maisarais, are we allowed to create a situation that you're putting something as a situation of a matzav of Naisar, l'Chatchila, Avada, that you cannot do. Says the Gemara, Yosef Rav Yitzchak Bar Shmuel Bar Marsa Gamed Rav Yechanan. Another suggestion, Gamed Rav Nachman. Again, we're trying to suggest maybe we should have done this at the beginning of the day. Go back to the Gemara, we're trying to talk about a case. It's back in Amabeis, you have a mixture of a taida with its tamura, and one of them dies, and we do not know which one was it, the taida or the tamura that died. So the Brisa taught us chaverta ein loy takana. That's really what we're trying to figure out. Is it really indeed a chaverta ein loy takana, or maybe these different suggestions tonight are going to work? So next is every Yisrael Shmuel Marsa Commander of Menachos on the second line of Be'alif, Amid Aleph, V'Yaseh V'Kamer, V'Leisi Be'im V'Lechem. Let him bring a behema and bread, V'Lema, and let him say, Iach Teikaimi Tamura. If the surviving animal is the tamura, not the actual taidai, ha taida v'lachma, and this is the taida lechem. V'yach Teikaimi taidai, ha lachma v'atavi tamura. So why is this not a possibility? He asks Rav Yitzchak. Amar lei, so Rav Nachman responds, Ani marei, answer me. Arba'im b'kasvei v'kosher. You designate an animal as tamura. Do you increase the arba'im, the malchus? And it's going to be kosher. It's true that the tamura becomes kaddish. However, you're not allowed to create tamura. So why are you saying that this is the appropriate action? Rav Yila Chalash, 6 lines down. Abaya and the Rabbana went. Yasi Vikam really went to visit, and he said, Im Isa. If we hold like Rav Yechon, that says that when the bread of the taida is out to the Chaymas Hazara, the walls of the Hazara, when the carbon is brought, it gets kedusha. Then what? The owner should be able to bring bread and put it outside the Hazara and say, Viloi lepig lechulin. So why is this not the avenue? Says Gemara Mishal Deika Araba Lahanif. The reason is there are 4 loaves that need to be waved, and therefore you run into a problem. What are you going to do? Lanafinu Avroi. Let's do the tzenufa, the waving. Abroi outside the chaser. L'nei Hashem ksiv. Kavoi. That's the reason why Lamaisa, it's not going to be possible to do the tenufa in such a scenario. Maskim lo Rav Shisha, so now Rav Shisha brings Rav Idi, excuse me, a 6th potential way of learning it. If we hold of Chizkiya Damar, Kitchu Arbayim Itayich Shemaynim. Said Chizkiya, whenever we have 80 loaves, 40 of the 80 become kaddish, lazy behema, lazy shmayne bada. So bring another animal and bring 80 breads in total. Valema, and say the following stipulation. Iach tekaima taida. If the one in front of me is a taidi, anami tavi taida. Then these additional breads, the extra 40 should be a taida as well. Achmi taida v'shmaynim. Excuse me. And therefore there's 80. If the one in front of me is a tamura, then this should be a taida. And 40 of the 80 become kaddish. So why don't we do this? Responds the Gemara, you know why? Because this is being memayet in the consumption of the 40, the ones that are questionable, the ones that you're not sure, those are not going to get, they're going to be given away as the Tumura. As we've learned, 1 of every 10 has to be given away to the Kayin, and really only that which is a Vadai has to be given, and therefore you're going to create this questionable situation. Rav Ashi, Rav Kahana. So Rav Ashi says to Rav Kahana, and Misal Rav Yechanan. If you hold the Rav Yechanan, this is the 7th potential way of figuring out how we can bring this carbon. If you hold the Rav Yechanan, Tamar, Hefesh chatas meuberes yalda. If one designated a chatas that is meuber, a pregnant animal, and then v'yalda she gives birth. Rata ba mischaper, rata mevlada mischaper. You're able to utilize either of the animals to get to the kapara. Then Lacy be mubaris. So what should you do? Bring a pregnant animal, designate it as a taida, v'yamtin and wait law. Until it gives birth. V'leisi shwein about to bring 80 breads. V'leima. Yach, the kaimi tumuri. If the one in front of me is the Tumura Vlada Taidi, Vashmanim the Tervayu. Then this new animal and the Vlada are both Taidas, and the 80 breads are the bread of that. Vihachtakai Taidi, Tumuri Vlada Taidi. Vashmanim the Tervayu, Vihachtakai Taidi, this is the Taidi, Anami Taida. He then Givaldik. Anami Taidi, Vashmanim the Tervayu, Valavi the Meiser. Taida, and then the extras are going to be the Meiser Taida. So Amarle, Rav Kana responds in the first white line, Man Leim Alan, who told you, Damar Rav Yechanan, Im Shire Mishayer, who told you that Rav Yechanan said that if one is left, and his deed is left, and that's the reason why we hold by the Chatas Muberes, both are going to have Kedusha. Delma Im Shire Mishayer, maybe it's not considered left, and therefore it's automatically considered a Meiser Chatas or a Meiser Taida. Final time of the Rav Yechanan. What's the reason of Rav Yechanan? Damar Adam is Chaper b'Sheva Chaktish. Rav Yechanan to be of the opinion that one can get a kapara through an animal that is the Shevach goes to Hektish. So finally says the Gemara, an eighth and final potential way of learning the Brayser Ravina Klai Lidam Hayriya. Ravina visited a place called Damhariya. Amar le Rav Dimi braid Ravuna with Damhariya Ravina. The fourth line. V'leisi behema v'leima, bring an animal and say, Harei olai, this animal is upon me to bring the taida. Designate the animal as the taida of V'leisi behema, to bring another animal V'leisi shwen about them, bringing the breads. V'leima, yach, the kaima tumuri, ani tarti taidis. V'ashmanim to tervai on these are the 80 breads. V'yach, the kaima taidi. V'adami olai nami lavi taida, v'ashmanim to tervayu. V'dech tavi the achrayis. The other one is just going to merely be as the guarantee for this one. Says Ravina Amr Le Atayra Amra Toiva Shalai Tadur Misha Tadur Shalem. It's not good to make nidarim. Vat Amr Leikum Linda Mitchila. And this is the reason why, going all the way back full circle, how we started, which really was how we ended yesterday on Payam Beis, that if someone has a tumura that becomes mixed up and one of them dies, there's no way to remedy the situation. Really, we could say, are there ways to remedy the situation? Theoretically, but none of them are lechatchila, and that's what we said, that there's nothing that could be done. And we continue with another Mishnah, and now the Mishnah is going to go involved in the regular taida, the chiyuvim of a taida. Ha'omer, someone says, harei alai taida. Someone says, it is incumbent upon me to bring a taida, yavihi v'lachma min achulin. It and its breads have to come from chulin, meaning he cannot use anything else to pay for the carbon. If you look at Rashi on this Mishnah, says Rashi, since you said a line is chayiv ba, and therefore it creates a chayiv, and therefore since it's a chayiv, it has to come from the chulin, and it can't come from meiser, etc. We turn over to Pei Aleph Amid Beis. Says the Mishnah, Taida alai min achulin v'lachma min meiser. Let's say someone doesn't just say arei alai taida. He articulates alai taida, and then he explains, but that should be min achulin. And then he continues and he explains that v'lachma, the bread, is min meiser. So what's the halacha? Then yavihi v'lachma min achulin. Everything has to come from chulin. Taida, next case. And of course, we have to explain what's the reason why that's all come from chulin. Why doesn't his stipulation saying that it can be from meiser help? Next case. Taida mina meiser, v'lachma mina chulin. Someone says the taida comes from meiser sheni, and the bread comes from chulin. Then Yavi Velachma Min HaMeiser. So we're starting to get a little bit of an inkling what's going on over here. And obviously it has to do that the bread comes along with the taida. So if the taida is going to be from the chulin, the bread will be from chulin. But in the case the taida is from meiser, bread's going to be allowed to come from meiser. And the final case, Yavi Hivlachim in a meiser. Yavi Hivlachim in a meiser. Yavi, excuse me. V'lo Yavi mechite meiser. But it should not bring from the wheat of meiser sheni. Ella mima'is meiser sheni. So as always, we'll dive right in. Amar Ravuna. So it says it's come about me just to bring the lachmei taida. He doesn't say a taida, he says the lachmei taida. Maybe taida. Ulachama. You got to bring both. My taima. Made the yada. I got this guy knows the lechem b'lay taida. La'ekriv no such thing as a lechem without a taida. My taida v'lachmei kamer. When he said I want to bring lachmei taida, what he meant is taida and it's lechem. Soif milsa nak. V'haydi kamer. Lachmei taida. Soif milsa naka, meaning that he's bringing a taida. Frekti Gemara Tanan. What about a Mishnah? Taida min ha'meiser v'lachma min ha'chulin. Our Mishnah, 2 lines from the top, we learned of the taida from the meiser v'lachma min ha'chulin. Yavi kamoishe nadar. What did the Mishnah say? The Mishnah taught us Yavi v'lachma min ha'meiser like you made the neder. Says the Gemara, Vamai, what's the reason? Since he said that the lechem is from chulin, shouldn't everything should be allowed to come from chulin? If we're going saif milsa kamar, if we're going to the end of what he said, then everything should be allowed to be brought from chulin. Says the Gemara, we're about 12 lines down. The first one line is shiny hasam the kima de amar. Since he said taida min ha'meiser nase ke oimer lelechem lifter taidasai shal pliny. It says if he said I want to bring the breads to pater up the taida of pliny, and that's the reason why you're gonna have to bring it from meiser, and we don't go with the saif milsa nugget. Frek the Gemara, if this is true, then 1 second reach the frakerta case. What did the Mishnah teaches? Yavi v'lachma min ha'chulin. Why? Hachanami are also nase kaimere alay taida. Lifter lachma shalplaini. It should be the same thing. Responds to the Gemara, chiyashta. Bishlam alechem lifter taida. I understand that the lechem can pater up the taida asi. But taida lemifter lechem miasya, the other way doesn't work, of course not, because the taida is the ikar, and the lechem comes to pater it. Another kashan Ravuna, Tashemar ken Ravuna's din. Was the din, as we started off the Gemara 5 lines down, that he said, if you said lachmei taida, maybe taida lachama, if you just said arele lachmei taida, you have to bring both. So we had one kasha for the Mishnah. Now says the Gemara, a second kasha. Someone says, I want to bring a taida without bread, or v'zevach b'nisachim. Kaifin said, we force maybe taida v'lachama zevach unisachim. Says the Gemara, it would seem time of the Amar. The reason that we force him is because he said, I want to bring a taida. If he didn't say I want to bring a taida, rather he said it's incumbent upon me to bring a lachmei taida. It would seem that what we would not force him. Ravuna said that we do. Responds the Gemara, I did not forget to lamar taida. I did kapai lemisni zevach b'lenechasin lemisni delay. So I did the kabayla mizdevach b'lenechasim to lemisni nesachim b'lezevach taninami taida. We learned the same thing by the taida. Frek the Gemara, 1 second. But amai, what is the reason why we force him to bring the taida and the bread? Or the zevach and the nechasim? Nedar upascha yimai. Bring us back to the Nadarim sugas. Why is this not a case of a nedar with its Pesach? With the way that could heal, that could undo the neder, and therefore you should not have to bring it. Explains the Gemara, Amar Chizkiya, neder b'sacha, upascha yimai, who? Amar Chizkiya, Amani beishami damar toifa islashin rishoim. D'tanan, Harani nazir ben Agregors ben Adavela, beishami rem nazir, beisilel rem ena nazir. Rabbi Yechanan Amar, a second daretz, afilotem beisilel. Why? Ba'omer alai, ba'omer ilu ayisi yodeh she'ein noidin kach. Because when he says, if I would have known, if I would, ilu ayisi yodeh, if I would have known she'ein noidin kach. If I would have known that I can't make a neder in this bray, if I would have known I can't bring a toida without the lechem, lo yisi noider kach, I would not have done it, ela kach, but rather in another way, with the bread, umay koifin. What does it mean to force? What it means is he wants to retract it after he agrees that avada he wanted to bring both. And when we ask him, he says, avada, that's what I meant, and I would have wanted to do that. But then he says, oh, no, I want to be chayzer. That's where we say it doesn't work. Tashema, let's bring a right. And we say to him, and he says, you would have known. That was halacha, we force him, Shamar v'shamata. We tell him, Shamar v'shamata, safeguard and listen to the words that I say. So says the Gemara on the first white line. So I understand according to Chizkiya's explanation, Nichalei el Rabbi Yechanan, Kasha, according to Yechanan Shver. So Rabbi Yechanan's whole pshat was going with his Beis Hillel, Tfais Lashon Rishon, but that does not work over here. Rabbi Yochanan avadai bei Shamahi. My Shamar v'Shamata. Rabbi Shamar Abba. Shamar is Havi Taida. Bring the Taida. V'Shamata is Havi Lachma. Rava Amar Shamar is Havi Taida. Lachma Ulachma. Shamata is what? Shal Teirago Lasas Ken. You shouldn't do this. Stop over here and we'll pick up the next line, which is the next line in the Mishnah. The next year, B'siyata Dishmaya.